Welcome back to the Vegas Lions radio show, proudly brought to you by Cox Business. Make sure you contact Michael Hoshu down at Cox Business for all your electrical needs. Now, we just heard some highlights there of the pretty brief fight down in Melbourne, Australia. And can I just say before we discuss the UFC fight that hats off, round of applause to Melbourne because they broke the record. Sporting capital of the world, they're calling it now, just so you know.
Oh, nice.
70,000 seat arena, completely sold out for UFC. I showed Belko a photo of it, and you could not see from the top deck. So I don't know.
I was going to ask if they were passing out binoculars at the.
Oh no, I don't know whether how much they've paid for those level 4 seats, but you wouldn't have been able to see too much of the 92-second fight, I think it was. So, and as you mentioned earlier, Millsy too. Sorry, just to clarify, my co-host here, Bill Miller and Jeff Belknap,
also known as Millsy
and Belko, and I'm Squid. So thanks very much for joining us yet again. So, 92-second bout. And Ronda Rousey actually refused to touch gloves with Holly Holm at the start of the fight.
She did.
So what were your thoughts on that, Millsy?
Man, knowing, of course, now what you know, it was not a good move on her part. I think that for Ronda, it was, I'm just letting you know what time it is, and, I got this. And unfortunately, she didn't. So I will say this: Ronda's never backed down from anybody.
Yeah.
And clearly there will be a rematch. I mean, that's obviously it's definitely on the horizon. And, I think that her strategy obviously will be to do what, she does best, and I think that's grapple.
Yeah.
She needs to get this gal on the ground. She cannot outpunch this.
Well, what I noticed in the fight was, one, that the fact that she didn't touch gloves is kind of like an offensive thing, because that's like the friendly part of like we're about to fight.
Yeah.
But what I saw in that was there was a little bit of fear there, and I think that she knew what she was kind of getting into. And shortly after the fight started, she tried to do a throw, which is like her signature move.
Yeah.
And when she realized that she couldn't do it, I felt like she was in trouble at that point. Because normally what that throw would work, and then she would get on top, do the armbar. She have all her techniques, that she does. But Bill, you and I have went to Tough Enough fights.
Yes.
And we've seen the difference, especially with the ladies. When the ladies aren't strong enough, it's very evident. When they get below, on the ground and start grappling, if they can't get that person off, then they're pretty much done.
It's a done deal. Yeah.
So that kind of seemed like what was happening. She couldn't get her on the ground this time, though. And going into boxing was actually Holmes', for what she likes to do.
Worked into her strength.
Yeah.
And, because if you look at the previous fights, and they've all been very quick, as soon as she gets, the opponent on the ground, it's her territory. And, it's just a matter of time.
Yes.
I actually noticed as well in the weigh-in, which was on the Saturday in Australia, excuse me, on the Saturday, that she even looked a little bit flustered at the weigh-in. Holly seemed to have really done a good job of getting under her skin in that weigh-in. Whereas, and I think they interviewed Ronda straight after, and she actually looked like really flustered. Whereas Holly Holm was just fine. Like she didn't have any worries in the world. And I'm pretty sure that weigh-in was also brought to you by Cox Business, wasn't it? So Cox Business.
That's right.
Thanks very much for sponsoring this segment too. Appreciate it. So,
Here.
So record crowd down there, and I know that's going to mean the appetite for the UFC in Australia is just going to get bigger and bigger. And funnily enough, cage fighting was actually illegal in Victoria, in the state of Victoria, up until very recently. So all the UFC fights that took place in Australia
with human beings.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they can put kangaroos in there.
Yeah, kangaroos are fine. Yeah, in fact, that's the highest rating TV show down there. The kangaroos fighting in a cage. So, no, but so Sydney was the only city that could host it. The other states could too, but they never host anything. So it's only really Victoria, New South Wales that hire anything. So no, Sydney was Olympics. Yeah. Other states besides New South Wales.
Because you call
and
it the Sydney Games.
Oh wait, so
Australian Games.
There are other states there.
Yeah, there's 7 or 8 other states, but no one really knows the other ones. So. But I'm glad you brought up the Olympic Games though, because you know who hosted them first.
Melbourne.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks for that. So Sydney was the only.
I thought you were going to say Rome.
Sydney. Originally Athens, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I think it was Athens at the start. So Sydney had the monopoly on all the UFC up until very recently. So that was one of the first bouts ever to be held in Melbourne, and they've packed it out with 70,000. So
that's for as far as the UFC is concerned, this is a huge win.
Yeah.
Because it means that Ronda Rousey is not the only female fighter.
Right.
Because if she had, kind of handled Holmes the way she had handled everyone else, I think people would be kind of yawning every time there's another Rousey fight.
Yep.
Unless they're going to pit her against maybe a smaller man. So
which would not be a fair fight.
No, it would not. And so I think that as far as UFC is concerned, I think they're probably the biggest winners in all of this.
Yeah. Well, they still have Cyborg to fight. That was going to be scheduled to be her next fight. So, Christy, I think her first name, Christy Cyborg.
Yeah. So
we actually saw her, or she was at one of the other events that we went to.
Yeah. And of course, hats off, by the way, to Tough Enough.
Yeah.
They're huge friends of the Vegas Lions and Southern Nevada Sports News. We are, we have them on from time to time.
Rona was on our show last week.
Yeah, not Ronda.
Rona.
Not Ronda. I actually introduced her as Ronda because I had a question about Ronda Rousey ready to go in my mind. I accidentally introduced her as Ronda, but Rona Hightower. So thanks very much for coming on the show last week. Appreciate
She quickly corrected him.
Yeah. It was a bit awkward because then I was like, I've just started off that interview the worst possible way. So
and they've always reached out to us in terms of inviting us to events. And if you haven't been to a Tough Enough fight, go to their website. And the bouts are professional. It's extraordinary.
Yep.
And they manage to. There's very little time in between bouts.
And a lot of those events are actually held at the Cox Pavilion too. So
actually, the next one in January will be in the Cox Pavilion.
Yeah, the Cox Pavilion.
Yeah. So Cox are just really getting involved in Vegas, which is great to see. So that's good, isn't it?
Yeah, and the thing about the Tough Enough events is they're local. A lot of local guys, some California, New Mexico, Texas, but it's based out of Las Vegas, and these are all amateur fighters.
Right.
They're not getting paid. They're actually doing this for the love of it, literally, but to hopefully get their shot at the UFC one time.
That's right.
So the opportunities are definitely there, and Jeff and Rona are doing a great job.
Yes, they are.
Of just creating a platform for these younger fighters.
So did you watch much of the undercard as well, or just the main event, guys? What was the thoughts on the rest of it?
I watched it on Facebook. So okay. I did the pirated deal. I'll be honest. I wasn't going to pay $69 for that, but I'm glad I didn't.
We'll add a disclaimer down at the bottom.
Yeah, but the one thing that I did notice, which was kind of cool, is Mayweather immediately picked up Holmes at our team money. Which I thought was a jab, but then he came out directly and basically was against the dogging out of Ronda Rousey. And he really supported her and actually literally told her that he would train with her. And that, usually you would see Mayweather as a guy that's always like kind of, digging and rubbing and, getting onto people's skin. But he actually stepped right in and said, look, man, I'll support you. And if you guys want to come and train at my gym, I'll train with you, which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
That was good from the money team, wasn't it?
Yeah.
What about, didn't you get a phone call from the money team at one point?
We won't bring that up today.
No, but that was good by the money team. It's pretty rare, actually, that he would go and do something like that.
Yeah, defended it. I liked it.
Yeah, definitely. So that's the UFC and covered off on. Now, there was another big story that broke this week as well with Alden Smith.
Yeah.
Yes.
Now, how many chances does one man need? That's basically my question for you, Millsy. What were your thoughts on it?
The Raiders knew what they were getting into when they signed this guy. I mean, it's not like he was operating in a vacuum, and there was no visibility. In fact, the day they signed him, charges were brought forward.
Yep.
And so they knew that the other shoe was going to drop at some point or another. I think the Raiders we got to get a pass rusher in here, toot sweet, and we just need help. Which is, I think, unfortunately the same mentality with regard to Greg Hardy down in Dallas.
Yeah.
Which, by the way, they're 0-5 since Hardy has started. Yeah. So I'm not surprised. There was a reason why the 49ers released him. The Raiders rolled the dice, and they had him on a short leash. The way his contract was structured, they're not going to take a real big financial hit on it. But basically, he's done for a year. Going forward, if the Raiders choose not to re-sign him, who is going to roll the dice on this young man?
Nobody. I mean, it's such a shame, too, because there's so a limited amount of NFL positions. And to see one of them literally get wasted, and there's other players that have done it. You have the wide receiver from Jacksonville, Blackman. Same exact thing. I mean, the guy gets off a drug suspension. He immediately goes on another drug suspension. Basically wasted 2 years of his career. And then who knows? When he comes back next season, if anyone's going to want him. And we're talking about a great, talented, college standout that just basically wasted his career with poor decisions.
What amazes me is with the amount of money that goes into these guys. If they do need help, surely there's someone within that organisation that can help them.
Look, for me and Bill have already volunteered $125,000 a year. I'll follow you around. Put me up. $125,000 a year. I'll follow you everywhere you go. I'll
Every
keep you out of
nightclub
trouble.
he goes into, you're happy to go in with him.
That's right.
So you'll be behaving yourself when he goes in there.
Make sure they don't get behind the wheel.
Mr.
right.
Smith,
Yeah.
I don't think you should be doing this, Mr. Smith. Don't do that, Mr. Smith.
Yes,
Yeah,
and
exactly.
not her either.
But yeah, that's sort of what amazes me with the amount of money that these guys are on. Surely there's someone they can either get, a contractor in to help them, or whether it's someone through the club. Just amazes me.
They actually do have that. As a matter of fact, one of the guys from the Giants that caught the David Tyree that caught the ball on his head in the Super Bowl. That's actually what his position is, and I think his salary is like $250,000. So if there's any NFL teams out there, I'll do it for $125.
You'll do it for half price.
That's right. I'm a discount.
You heard it here.
You heard it here first, exactly. Well, that brings us up to the next commercial break, guys. So thanks very much again to Cox Business, Michael Hoshu, for sponsoring that segment. Really appreciate it. We're back after this short commercial break.